So this past weekend we had our first IndyCar race of the 2025 season at St. Pete. A pretty good weekend overall, as we had the debut on Fox. Going to be going over the presentation of that today and just the whole weekend overall and the race. A lot of stories to talk about and some decent debuts, some horrible debuts, and some bad luck overall. I mean, pretty much how it goes every weekend. So yeah, going to be going into all that today. So on a race start, Scott McLaughlin had a pretty big jump early, and we had a pretty clean start going into turn number 1 and number 2. But an incident on turn number 3, as we kind of had this accordion effect going into the turn. Will Power comes in really fast, taps the back of Nolan Siegel, spins him out, also collects Louis Foster in this crash. Sucks for all three of them, honestly. Nolan had a very strong qualifying weekend, looked really determined coming into the season, as this is a really big year for him to prove it that he belongs in that car at McLaren. Will Power in a contract season as well over at Penske, so a very disappointing start for him. And Louis Foster, who is going into his IndyCar debut, had a very strong season last year, won the championship, but heading over into his IndyCar debut sucks for him, crashed out as well. Just unfortunate for all three of those drivers after some very decent qualifying sessions. Early in this race, I feel like we had some pretty interesting storylines, as Meyer Shank was looking really strong early with Felix Rosenqvist in third position and Marcus Armstrong in fourth. If it wasn't for that contact later in the race, Marcus Armstrong I feel like would have had a very strong day. Very good qualifying for both of them and a very decent race day for a while. AJ Foyt as well, which didn't really get talked about a lot, was running really well early with David Malukas in 6th and Santino Ferrucci in 7th, as those two kind of battled all day together and it wasn't really talked about. I feel like those two are going to be really good this year and kind of work on each other a little bit to kind of build some confidence and kind of create some better race results for the both of them, as they were kind of neck and neck the whole day. And I feel like Colton Herta also had some really bad luck in this race after what was a very good qualifying session and a decent run for a while. Had some tire degradation early. The alternates were not working out well either for any of the drivers. We saw a multitude of different strategies in this race, as we had 3 different strategies being ran. Christian Lundgaard also leading for a while in this race. A very strong debut for him, kind of risking it with the strategy at the end, really try to make those alternates last for a while, and he just could not pull it together. A very, very hard task to do, so not easy for him, but a very strong debut and what could be a very strong season for him, and possibly even a win. But as we got closer and we started to see these strategies kind of come into play, we saw this kind of main focus on this pack at the top, as we had a battle of Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, and Alex Palou. Kyle Kirkwood running really strong right behind them, but just could not pull up into that kind of lead pack into contention. Christian Lundgaard also as well needing to pit. He was in first for a while. Felix Rosenqvist behind him in second needed to pit as well. Very strong days for both of them, but just not really able to contend for the race win at the end, unfortunately, just because of strategies. As it was coming up to Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, and Alex Palou. As we started to get closer to the race finish, Scott Dixon pulled into the pits, and Alex Palou had a really good undercut, pulling into what would be the race-leading move, as Alex Palou pretty much coasted to a victory after that. Had a very strong kind of run getting to that point. It wasn't necessarily easy for him getting to that race win, but it was just classic Alex Palou. Looked very strong, really consistent lap times. Stingray Robb did become a factor later in this race, but just wasn't really a big issue, as Alex eventually was able to get past Joseph Newgarden as well after a certain point. But it was pretty much it, as Joseph wasn't really able to catch up to Alex. Did see a nice battle between Scott Dixon and Joseph Newgarden, as Scott Dixon, who didn't apparently have any radio during this race, able to pull off a massive feat, pulls past Joseph Newgarden in the last turn as Joseph was starting to slip a little bit and loosen grip. Gets second, which sucks for him because he's gotten second at St. Pete quite a few times, hasn't been able to pull off a win there, but a very strong day for him. I mean, no radio, no spotter, no nothing. Has to hold on to those strategies inside the cockpit and also hold down the race car and also remember everything else that is going on. I mean, that is absolutely insane. Scott Dixon is the fucking GOAT. But Alex Palou, the man that everyone had to beat, no one could beat him today, looking very strong. in a season that some were questioning if he was going to be able to come in and look as dominant as other guys were coming up and up, but kind of shutting up those haters a little bit, myself included. It might be another championship for Alex Below. Some of my thoughts after the race, just some of the highs and lows, I guess you could say, of the race overall and the presentation, racing, just all of it. Didn't really show a lot of the middle of the pack battles that we usually see. IndyCar is a very competitive sport. You see a lot of these battles not only in the front of the field, but the middle and the very back of the pack. I feel like it's one of the few racing series where you see a lot of these dominant battles and you see people really fighting for every single position. Positions aren't just given up, and I love that about IndyCar. You have to earn every single spot. And we didn't really see a lot of a focus for Fox on the middle of the pack battles. We saw pretty much just a focus on the leaders, and that was pretty much it. So in the future, if we can see more of a focus on maybe those middle battles, I feel like that'd be good for the future. I really like this idea from them, but how can we make it feel more like IndyCar? Because IndyCar isn't Formula One. It has more of this American Midwest feel to it. It's not that same kind of vibe to it that I feel like Formula One has. So if we can kind of get it more like that into the future, that would be great, but I feel like overall presentation-wise, it was a good start. It was a good debut. I feel like the commentary team was honestly really solid. As Will Buxton, as the play-by-play is, I feel like it's going to be really good for the season. A decent debut, I would say, and a very good start. Something like that at like the Indy 500, some of these big ovals that we have. I feel like at the Indy 500, I mean, the first couple of laps should just be silent. Just let the fans just kind of take in the sound, the view of these cars, just seeing them just go and just really take it in. I feel like they could be good for the future. Also, 1.4 million viewers for St. Pete, which is the most for an IndyCar race, non-Indy 500 since 2011. Great to see. It's going to be interesting to see how they keep that momentum going as we have 3 weeks until Thermal Club. But overall, I feel like this was a very strong start, and I'm really excited to see what IndyCar has going forward. So, gonna have to wait 3 weeks. Gonna be looking forward to Thermal Club, and what a weekend. It's just great to have IndyCar back.